I think if anyone would know about aliens on Earth, it would probably be me. The Mars colonization mission is a long-term goal of Elon Musk's rocket firm, SpaceX. The creator of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, has a vision of a space colony with 1 trillion inhabitants. However, the head of a commercial space corporation, Elon Musk, is taking a different tack and wants to be involved in the hunt for something out of the ordinary on Venus. Numerous mysteries surround Venus, which modern spacecraft are trying to unravel. Although Elon Musk has always been primarily interested in Mars, he has recently turned his attention to other planets, especially Venus, and has disclosed what one of the probes on Venus found. What did the probe find out? Is it possible for the hostile planet to harbor life? What are the rationalities behind choosing Venus as the location of human habitation? Next, come along as we explore the horrifying message that Elon Musk recently announced. The uncharted territory extends over the entire solar system. In a row beginning in 2001, NASA sent 8 missions to Mars, 5 of which successfully landed on the red planet. Now, on servers somewhere, humanity possesses a trove of data about Mars that no one has ever looked at. However, data gathered from the spacecraft's brief interactions with Jupiter's moons or the icy behemoths Neptune and Uranus have been exhausted. The narrative of the Mars expedition has become a happy ending in and of itself. We learned about huge bodies of water in Mars's distant past, including floodplains where life might have bubbled to the surface from the exceedingly successful robot missions that we've deployed there. Mars's ice caps, carbon dioxide snow, core geology, atmosphere, and wind-eroded surface are all things they've informed us about. Thus, the hunt goes on. The founder of SpaceX, Elon Musk, has stated his intention to use his firm to colonize Mars. The creator of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, has a vision of 1 trillion people residing in space. However, there has been a growing chorus demanding that NASA shift its focus in recent years to planets other than Mars. Humans have been piloting wheeled robots for almost 20 years, such as Venus, Saturn's moon Titan, and the faraway nameless turquoise orb of Uranus. Carl Sagan once said that Venus is the planet in our solar system most like hell. Therefore, why will we return to start? Getting to Venus is easier and faster than getting to Mars, because Venus is significantly closer to Earth. Bone density loss and other issues related to low gravity situations wouldn't be an issue because its gravity is similar to Earth's. Venusian life would be completely different from Earthian life. We wouldn't dare dream of such a misleading world if Venus weren't visible to us. The planet, which is one of the most breathtaking things to see at night, is named for the Roman goddess of love and fertility, but up close, Venus reeks of spoiled eggs. Submarines would collapse under immense pressure, and the surface temperatures would be so high that wood and gasoline would spontaneously catch fire, while the rain would melt flesh. Humans cannot survive on the planet's surface due to the extremely high temperatures and high air pressure, which is comparable to living at the bottom of a very deep ocean where lead can be melted. That leaves us with no choice except to make our home in the clouds just beyond the ionosphere, shielding radiation. One neat thing about Venus is that it would be possible to construct floating cities inside breathable atmosphere balloons. Jeffrey Landis, a scientist at NASA, came up with the idea. But wait, you say, we would actually live in a balloon? That sounds really risky, doesn't it? Well, no more dangerous than living inside a radiation-shielded bunker on Mars. Extraterrestrial radiation is a serious concern. Most cosmic rays that hurtled toward Earth's atmosphere are deflected by our strange and powerful magnetic field. You may not have known this, but radiation shielding would be necessary if we established a small town on Mars. The regolith would offer natural shelter, which is why some experts have proposed that humans should reside underground on Mars. Wearing bulky armor would be a necessity whenever you ventured out of your fortified abode. Another possibility is that you would undergo genetic modification to enable your DNA to self-repair following radiation exposure. In any case, it will cause enormous trouble for the polynucleotide chains that you prefer if your life depends on a man-made ecosystem. Good news, the pressure within our breathable air balloons flying in Venus's atmosphere would be equivalent to the pressure outside. Even if something were to slam into them, that rules out a disastrous explosion. Instead, the balloon would leak slowly until we fixed it. Venus, as we know it now, is hideous. But scientists believe it was once a temperate oceanic and possibly habitable world. 2 blue marbles may have orbited the Sun side by side for billions of years in our solar system. Venus, our once verdant sibling, was ravaged by a runaway greenhouse effect caused by a catastrophic accumulation of carbon in its atmosphere. While life on Earth continued to thrive and prosper, Venus is a lethal marble, a planet in crisis. Perhaps Venus is more of a forbidding prophecy than a cosmic accident. It represents the inevitable fate of terrestrial planets in similar orbits. Alternatively, Venus may never have been the habitable planet that scientists imagine it to be. In the coming decade, 3 spacecraft will set out to determine if Venus ever had liquid oceans, and if so, for how long and how vast they were. The 3 robotic probes will create an exact surface map of the planet, search for evidence of ongoing volcanism, and investigate the planet's innards along with shedding light on Earth. These probes will determine whether any of the millions of rocky planets in solar systems similar to Venus's orbit around other stars are potentially habitable. I really think that Venus is the key to unlocking planetary habitability, says Stephen Kane of the University of California, Riverside. We always obsess about habitability and forget to ask the question, what makes a planet uninhabitable? That's what Venus is, but this new mission fleet won't be able to solve all of Venus's riddles. Prolonged landers or rovers, which must endure the harsh circumstances on the surface of the planet, will need to investigate crucial concerns, including the quantity of continuous seismic activity. In order to prepare for such daring missions, scientists are already testing electronics and other hardware in chambers that mimic the harsh conditions of the alien world. Since astronomers first placed the globe in their telescopic sights in the 1600s, the bewilderingly magnificent planet that shines in our heavens has captivated them. Scientists had some pretty outlandish theories about the next-door planet's inhabitants until the 1960s. Back then, Venus was depicted in textbooks as a lush tropical forest. It made sense. Clouds covered Venus, which was believed to resemble Earth because of its proximity to the Sun. The surface of Venus, however, was determined to be scorching hot at over 700 degrees Fahrenheit in 1961 after a radio telescope had already pointed at the planet. It was quickly discovered that the planet's temperature was adjusted to broil at all times, even when it was nighttime. One seemingly interminable day on its wretched surface lasts for 243 days on Earth, which is longer than Venus's 225-day year. After almost 4 months of darkness, the night side ought to have been noticeably colder. That was a real surprise. Venus must have an extremely dense atmosphere. You could shut off the sun, and the planet's temperature would remain constant for 100 days, because of its immense size. Confirmation of these calculations and an independent forecast by Carl Sagan came from follow-up observations, and it quickly became clear that the planet sometimes called Earth's twin was not doing so well. Now that we know that although Venus and Earth are both spherical, around the same size and likely have similar bulk compositions, the similarities actually stop there. Venus is hot and dry, in contrast to Earth's mild and wet climate. On the surface, it typically reaches temperatures of 860 degrees Fahrenheit. Desiccated landscapes marked by flowing lava rather than liquid rivers characterize this world. Its surface pressure is 90 times Earth's, comparable to the crushing force you would experience 3,000 feet underwater. Venus has a permanently clouded sky, in contrast to Earth where clouds rise and fall. Over
45 miles of thick cloud cover obscures the sun's rays. In the high atmosphere, there are strong winds, and the whole atmosphere is constantly swirling around the globe. One of the main concerns that scientists are aiming to resolve in the next 10 years is whether Venus has perpetually been a hellish planet. Perhaps other planets like Venus that circle faraway stars could likewise be temperate if Venus had been another blue marble for billions of years. All those exovenuses might as well be barren if Venus's composition and closeness to the Sun caused it to be born this way. However, much of the money for American planetary missions has gone toward Mars since the mid-1960s. The Mellon spacecraft last traveled to Venus in 1989 to create a preliminary radar survey of the surface, marking the last time NASA dispatched an exploration probe to the planet. 14 missions have been launched toward Mars by NASA since then. For a long time, the Soviet Union was the leading space exploration power on Earth. They launched scores of spacecraft toward the veiled world beginning in the 1960s, with some heading for a tranquil orbit and others destined to goop on the harsh surface. Among those tragic landers, Venera 9 sent back some pictures of Venus's terrain to Earth in 1975, making those the first ever taken from another planet's surface. During their brief stays on the planet, 4 Soviet spacecraft sent back photographs that prompted artists to envision what it might be like for a lander to descend on a scorching environment shrouded in sickly orange clouds. Recently, spacecraft from Japan and Europe have been investigating Venus, and India is planning a new trip to the planet. However, for the past few years, only one spacecraft, the Akatsuki, has been orbiting the planet. The never-ending quest for water and indications of life elsewhere has made Venus seem like an insignificant planet to many scientists. At least not at the moment. Not one, but 2 new Venus missions were announced by NASA Associate Administrator Thomas Zurbuchen as part of the space agency's Discovery program, shocking the planetary research community. Similar plans to send a spacecraft to Venus were announced the next week by the European Space Agency. The 2 missions run by NASA are referred to as Da Vinci and Veritas, respectively. While the mission run by ESA is called Envision, what gives Venus this particular moment? Mission designs that could accomplish great science within the limited budget of the Discovery program, which is the smallest of NASA's 3 interplanetary mission categories of a few $100 million. New and intriguing scientific results about Venus's climate history and a wealth of planets orbiting other stars that are probably exovenuses were the deciding factors. According to Zurbuchen, who said that NASA selected the mission even though a group of astronomers has just made the exciting and contentious announcement of phosphine gas on Venus, which could be a sign of life. None of the new missions are specifically meant to look for phosphine. Rather, they will change our understanding of Venus's history and potential. By studying Venus, we can gain more than what would have been possible with just those 3 missions alone. A fantastic complete picture of Venus will be created by combining the spacecraft later this decade. The 3 of them will embark on a journey to Venus. It is anticipated that Da Vinci will be launched in 2029 and will make 2 passes by Venus before entering orbit in 2031. The probe will slowly descend through Venus's clouds for an hour, obtaining the first detailed photographs of the surface from above before crash landing. The spacecraft will use different wavelengths to study the surface and clouds of the planet. According to G. Anik, a deputy principal investigator from NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the probe is spherical and about the size of a huge beach ball or, as others would put it, a little beanbag chair. IT is not necessary, but would be a bonus for the probe to be able to stay on the surface for up to 17 minutes if it makes it through the drop. The titanium probe will take atmospheric samples as it descends from the planet, specifically searching for noble gases, which are substances like helium, xenon, krypton, and argon. These substances remain in Venus's atmosphere like molecular fossils or direct indicators of the planet's past. The formation process, past volcanic activity, and water source can all be unearthed by studying these noble gases. In order to determine if Venus once had oceans, the probe will also measure the relative abundances of light and heavy hydrogen atoms, revealing the amount of water that entered the atmosphere. The probe's landing site, called Alpha Regio, is one of the planet's wrinkled, deformed surface regions known as tesserae. Scientists suspect these terrains could be the remains of ancient continents. The composition of the tessera, which were given that term by Russian scientists in the 1980s due to their resemblance to parquet flooring, is a major subject of debate. Our continental crusts are composed of granite, formed on Earth by the action of water, while basaltic rocks are formed by the eruption of volcanoes. To shed light on this enigma, the other NASA mission Veritas will analyze the chemical makeup of Venus's surface. In addition to mapping Venus's gravity field from orbit, Veritas will keep an eye out for evidence of active Venusian volcanoes, which are a possible source of the planet's heat. Given the lack of tectonic plates like Earth's, new evidence suggests that Venus might be home to active volcanoes even now. If verified, the discovery would aid planetary scientists and astronomers in their quest to identify life beyond Earth. For a long time, scientists argued over whether Venus could have volcanic activity. Using its cloud-penetrating radar, the Magellan orbiter discovered a terrain dotted with mountains that resembled volcanoes in the early 1990s. However, it was unclear if these characteristics were still operational. Later, in 2010, information gathered by the European Venus Express mission showed that lava had flowed as recently as 250,000 years ago in a number of hotspots. Venus is much more similar to Earth than previously believed. This new timeframe was seen to be exceptional by several scientists. Scientists need much improved maps to piece together Earth's geologic history and present activity levels. Veritas will collect radar and topographical data on a planet that is more than 3 times larger than Earth's continents. TO create maps that are much more accurate and comprehensive than the hazy ones produced by Magellan. Approximately 25% of the planet's surface will be meticulously mapped by Envision, yielding groundbreaking new information on the extraterrestrial landscape. IN planetary exploration. NASA has stuck to a tried-and-true method for decades. Fly past another globe. This was first accomplished in the 1960s with the Mariner probes. Zoom by Venus. After that, send out orbiters, landers, and rovers, in that order. The weather, atmospheric interactions, surface composition, and seismic activity of a planet can only be understood with the help of long-term surface missions. Electronics and other hardware capable of functioning in the harsh Venusian environment are already being developed by teams at NASA and elsewhere. Another is developing communication devices to transmit observations back to Earth. The knowledge that Mantooth, Kremek, and their colleagues have gained from developing electronics for natural gas turbines and other extreme aviation applications is being utilized in their work. Venus should be an ideal testing ground for their newly designed silicon carbide transistors and circuits. Additionally, they have developed sensors using gallium nitride, a heat-resistant semiconductor. They have perfected the art of encasing these electronics in durable containers that can withstand tremendous pressures without collapsing. TO tests their hardware. Teams use environments that mimic the extreme conditions found on Venus's surface. A giant among them is the gear given the scarcity of solar energy beneath all those clouds. Powering a lander is an additional difficulty, or Glenn Extreme Environment Rig. Kremek and his colleagues may simulate Venus's reactive and corrosive atmosphere by pumping a gas mixture into the 800L pressure cooker. They have progressed from testing individual components, such as circuitry, sensors, and shielding, to subsystems as a whole, placing them in the chamber for months on end. Testing a tiny prototype Venus lander would be the next major step, according to Kremek. Sending a 22-pound robot equipped with a suite of sensors to the surface of Venus and hoping to survive for at least 60 days is a mission proposal termed LISA, which stands for Long-Lived In Situ Solar System Explorer. According to Kremek, the team is aiming to integrate a LISA prototype into gear by the end of 2025, just as the albums of photographs from Mars's surface turned that red into a vast world of mountains, craters, and canyons. Seeing Venus's vistas from its surface will drastically alter our perception of our neighbor to the west. The pixelated Venera photos sent 50 years ago by those ring Soviet landers still managed to make an impression. More advanced technology will soon make our extraterrestrial system more visible, leading us to ask questions we hadn't considered, and unveiling landscapes both more stunning and more terrifying than anything we could have imagined. Thanks for watching another episode. While you're still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more mind-blowing videos about space.